Are you dealing with some doubts? Are you questioning the way things are turning out? Let's cultivate some conscious moments this morning. I'll be right back. Good, glorious morning, everyone. And I want to welcome you in today. And perhaps you're dealing with some doubts, you got some transition, but just take a moment to breathe. I did this morning. Just the ability to, condition ourselves. Condition yourself to stop. When you think about all the transitions in your day, the mind is constantly starting and stopping all day long, more than ever before. Doubts can creep in. You can wander away with yourself. You might be dealing with some doubt, some self-worth. I struggled with that for many, many years, and most people didn't know it. But I would fold. And that self-doubt would creep in. But maybe we can look at it a different way. Take a breath at least to get yourself going here. I was going to grab a little quote here, but it looks like I lost the quote. It was here and now it's not. But what we can do is take a moment. And when I say breathe, I want to encourage you to breathe through your nose in. And you drive the air deep into your lungs so that your belly fully expands. Soften your face. And you pause just a moment when that breath comes in. And so, in some cases, what you can do is once you've inhaled, just see if you can grab a little bit more air, right? So it's like this. And then you let that out, and it sounds like, yeah, but are you doing it? You see, I used to think that I knew it. Like when somebody was teaching something, I would say, I know that. But then I would say, am I doing that? To know and not to do is not to know. That is the great equalizer. I learned that from Stephen Covey. Many years ago, I went through Stephen Covey training, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said, to know and not to do is not to know. Think about that. To know and not to do is not to know. And right now we are filled. Our heads are with content and information just constantly pumping in. But what are we doing to feed our heart and soul? And it's not just going to church to check off the box. There's other ways to feed your heart and soul. So my name is Austin James Haynes, and this is Cultivate Conscious Moments. And that's what we're doing. And I was referring to this book, Breath, by James Nestor. And this book is so profound. You know, we talk about simplicity, and But yet, in this simple act of inhale, exhale, worlds are unfolding. Life itself is unfolding. And why am I not finding this quote? Okay, maybe it's here. Maybe it's here. Here's a quote: 40% of today's populations suffers from chronic nasal obstruction, and around half of us are habitually mouth breathers, with females and children suffering the most. So when I talk about breathe, it's an epidemic. Why is it an epidemic? I'll tell you why it's an epidemic. Because we are in a state of fight or flight. The world is pumping information into your mind, and somebody will show up on TikTok with some political narrative. We are so bogged down by this stuff pumping in our heads. And the stuff gets in there and it can't help but ooze into our experience. So if we can just stop and breathe, because that breath that you're breathing is the most real and most authentic thing in your life in this moment. Without it, the life force starts to fade. So why not take one conscious, deep breath in this day and cultivate a conscious moment for yourself? And this way you condition it into your life, not I'm going to go and do breath work. You can do that too. That's amazing. But what if you just began to condition yourself throughout the day? And then when you need it most, it's there for you. I'm going to read a couple things here. I had dealt with some inferiority growing up. And so I always tend to focus on that. I tend to go back to that and focus on that. And last night I was thumbing through this book here, Thich Nhat Hanh. And my dad was in the Vietnam War. So my dad went to Vietnam to fight in the Vietnam War. In the meantime, Thich Nhat Hanh was being exiled from his country of Vietnam for his stance on nonviolence. And it wasn't until later in life that he went back to Vietnam. But he wrote, he's a prolific writer. He's called the father of mindfulness. And he just wrote a thing about inferiority here. I just wanted to read it to you. Many people have the idea that they are not good at anything, that they are not able to be as successful as other people. They cannot be happy. They envy the accomplishments and social standing of others while regarding themselves as failures if they do not have the same level of worldly success. We have to try to help those who feel this way. We must come to them and say, you should not have an inferiority complex. I see you in some very good seeds that can be developed and make you into a great being. If you look more deeply within and get in touch with those wholesome seeds in you, you will be able to overcome your feelings of unworthiness and manifest your true nature. And one teacher writes, we should not look down on ourselves. We should not see ourselves as worthless and always withdrawn into the background. And that's a quick little excerpt on your self-worth. And I think that people are going to treat you the way you see yourself. Do you know your true value? Do you know your true worth? What thoughts have you allowed to dominate your mind? What thoughts are running without you aware of it? What story are you telling yourself that is limiting your life and the experience? That's the thing. That's the questions. And, questions are the answers. And so, what question will you ask yourself today? My question has been, what will I create today to feed the heart and soul? What can I create today to feed the heart and soul? And I'm going to share just a couple other things here before we wrap up. Um, and I talked about the thinking. So observe the competing thoughts in your mind. So, Kay, you're going to paint today. Very good. So let's turn that may into I will. Observe the competing thoughts in your mind, the what ifs, the buts, or the shoulds that compete for your attention. Write about how different the thoughts affect your energy, how those thoughts can rise and fall, and see if you can just be present with it all. And it says here, I'm reading from this book here, The Untethered Soul. And it says here, consciousness is one of the great mysteries in life. Inner energy is another. So the inner energy, your inner footprint. I always say the divine has put a footprint on a fingerprint on your soul, not a footprint, a fingerprint on your soul. It's your own unique identity. And a lot of times we're not in touch with that. We're in touch with some kind of worldly gain that's not in alignment. And this is why people suffer and we get trapped in the ego and what we think, and we try to prove ourselves. We try to validate ourselves constantly. All you got to do is go on social media, right? So the other thing I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share the poem today. Yes, this is on YouTube as well. Thanks, Kay. So we're on YouTube right now, and this is streaming in the YouTube. It's actually going on LinkedIn as well. I just decided to put it on LinkedIn today. And because I want to touch the business mind, like that's constantly in a state of achieving. And when do you get time to be who you really are? When does your mind stop? It's obsessive. It's constant. It's just thinking. And think about the transitions you're going to have today. And all we need to do, you may think, oh my gosh, how do I change this? Well, all we need to do is cultivate one conscious moment. And the one conscious moment, it's almost like smelling salts for your heart and soul. It's like, wow, we're here in this moment. It's like, oh my God, yeah, I'm alive. Like I just try to remind myself, like, oh my God, there's blood pumping through my body right now. I'm not even paying attention to that. But yeah, there's like my heart's beating right now. I'm not doing anything. I just put food in my mouth and it miraculously goes through and nourishes my body. Like I had nothing to do with that. Like I just put the food in, like I chose the food, I put it in my mouth, and miraculously something happens. It's converted into energy. It goes into the blood and waste goes out. Like all these things are happening. And I have no idea that they're happening. So let me read this. This is a poem, Rumi, A Year with Rumi by Coleman Barks. So let me read this poem to you. And then I got one other thing to share, and we're going to wrap it up. We'll make it a wrap. This is called An Evolving Course. It's dated today, April 13th. It says, we begin as mineral. We emerged into plant life and into the animal state, and then to being human. And always we have forgotten our former states, except in early spring. Except in early spring, when we dimly recall being green again. That is how a young person turns toward a teacher, how a baby leans toward the breast without knowing the secret of its desire, yet turning instinctively. So humankind is being led along an evolving course through this migration of intelligences. And though we seem to be sleeping, there is an inner wakefulness that directs the dream. It will eventually startle us back to the truth of who we are. Isn't that amazing? And there's so much in that. But just think about, rather than get lost in the poem and try to understand it all, just think about your evolving nature. And when we can coast through life. And we get put on what? Autopilot. And what else do? We put our best life in some future moment when this or this or this happens. Or we tell ourselves the story, I can't because I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm a trans, I'm gay, whatever. I can't change. It is what it is. And then we say, well, maybe someday I'll make a change. But we don't. But what this says, and that's kind of like this being led along. You're like where we seem to be sleeping. So you might seem to be sleeping. Your inner longings that you've subdued or put into the future seem to be sleeping, but there's an inner wakefulness as well that directs the dream. And then it will eventually startle us back to the truth of who we are. And perhaps the authenticity in me longs to connect to the authenticity that's in you. And when it's authentic and when it's real, you know it. And then you know it, and it's conscious. And then that consciousness continues that migration and that evolutionary process. And you are never the same again. Like, is it Albert Einstein? A mind that's stretched can never return to its former state. I think that was Albert Einstein. So when you change, you truly change through this process of consciousness and awakeness, you can't go back to the former state. Because, and what you're really doing is you're evolving into your authentic self. And the world needs that. And the paradox is I can't show myself. I can't be myself in the world because no one's going to accept it. They're going to make fun of me. And judgment. I just wrote a poem on judgment. Go to my TikTok account. You'll see it. We are fearful of judgment, but what the world needs is you. The world needs you. And then we'll leave you with this. We'll leave you with this today as we close out. May your heart open to the unexpected miracles that happen every day in little seeds of infinitude. Time dissolves and inner peace ascends. May your heart open to the unexpected miracles that happen every day in little seeds of infinitude. Time dissolves and inner peace ascends. And this was a little bookmark that I created, and I've given it as gifts to people. They really like it. So there it is. Thanks for being here today, everybody. This is great. I appreciate you. And if you like it, do something. Kay, as always, thank you for staying here and hitting that screen. And because this is kind of a revolving door with TikTok, but it's all good. I know that people come in, they get what they need at that time, and they exit. And of course, we have YouTube and LinkedIn today. My name's Austin James Haynes. I went from a 19-year employee with a Fortune 500 company, and through a series of events have become a poet. I resigned in the middle of my best year go over to my YouTube channel and you can check out the full story. There's a video there. It's few minutes, like 4 minutes long, and you can learn the full story. But what I want this to be is I want this to be a place that feeds your heart and soul. And that's it for now. So God bless everybody. Have a great day. I'm going to say goodbye to YouTube and LinkedIn.